Gamla Uppsala, Sweden. This small town, 40 miles north of Stockholm, is one of the oldest continuously inhabited sites in Scandinavia. Beneath this church, archaeologists have found what they believe are the remains of a famous temple called Uppsala. According to a 14th century text called the Deeds of Bishops of the Hamburg Church, this ornate temple was built to honor the most powerful Viking gods: Odin, Thor, and Freyr.
Frey is the main fertility god of Norse mythology. The rituals that we do have evidence of connected to Frey seem always to be connected to peace and prosperity. So all of these characteristics show him in a relationship with humans that's centered around prosperity and fertility of various types.
Freyr was believed to control the weather and was renowned for his diplomatic skills, quieting the feuds among the numerous Viking gods and giants. And in the Viking pantheon, it was a deity named Loki who provoked the most conflict among these gods.
Loki is actually not a god. He's a giant who is counted amongst the gods. And at the end of time, he actually leads the dead and the giants against the gods.
He's that transgressive character who makes possible all of these conflicts that the gods then have to solve. Without Loki, a lot of the conflicts disappear and you don't have a mythology at all.
According to the stories compiled within the books of the Eddas, Loki tries to atone for one of his many acts of mischief by giving Freyr a ship called Skidbladnir.
Freyr's ship, Skidbladnir, was the most fine craft that ever was in the water. It could go anywhere at great speed, and then, if he needed it to be small, he could put it in a small pouch to carry it around.
Skidbladnir is remarkable because you can fold it up and stick it in your pocket. But when you unfold it, it's one of the greatest Viking ships ever. It always has a wind. It always has a fair wind, so you don't have to tack. It always gets you where you're going in a hurry. And then once you get it to shore, you don't have to worry about where you're going to stow it. To be able to fold up your boat and put it in your pocket really has to be about the greatest thing that you can imagine if you're a Viking shipbuilder.
But could it be that Skidbladnir was not the product of mythic imagination, but was, in fact, an actual spacecraft, one that was witnessed by early Scandinavians? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and believe the proof lies in the legends of a race of beings who are believed to have built the magical tools used by the gods.
In Norse mythology, the sons of Ivaldi were these dwarves who made these special weapons for Thor and Odin and the other Norse gods. And so here were these dwarves, these gnomes, these small people. They're making these special, very high-tech weapons. The Norse gods are using them. So you have to wonder just who these mini people are.
The sons of Ivaldi were the master craftsmen of the gods in the Norse system, and they made each of these special things that are going to be needed by these heroic gods to do their deeds.
Might the sons of Ivaldi actually be the engineers behind the building of Skidbladnir, the magical ship used by the Norse god Freyr? If so, who or what were they?
Now the question is whether the sons of Vivaldi are real dwarfs, the way we know dwarfs today, or whether they are somehow more mythical, or whether the label dwarf actually stuck to them because they were somehow smaller. And of course today we quite often describe the great alien archetype as dwarfish as well, simply because they are smaller.
Is it possible that these little people who are making these high-tech weapons were really gray aliens? And because they didn't know how to describe them, they will call them dwarves or little people? And these little people are the ones who are making these high-tech weapons for these Norse gods. And it would seem that these weapons are extraterrestrial in nature.
Mount Olympus, Greece. Rising over 9,500 feet, this sacred mountain is the second tallest in the Balkan Peninsula. According to ancient myth, it was also the chosen home of immortal deities known as the Olympians.
Mount Olympus hides a particularly mysterious abode where the gods live in perfect immortal repose for all of their existence. Even nowadays, clouds gather around the top of it. That's where it is assumed that the abode of the gods was, up in the clouds that you weren't able to see.
Mount Olympus was viewed as sacred by the ancient Greeks, and the city of Dion, located at the foot of the mountain, became a major center of pilgrimage and religious worship in the 5th century BC.
Dion was at the base of Mount Olympus, and it was believed to be a power spot. 4th century BC, Alexander the Great came to Dion before launching off on his vast conquest of Asia. There is something about this place, something very important related to the mountain. The Greeks were fascinated by Mount Olympus, and they believed that real people, real gods, were living up there. When they saw lightning flashes, storm clouds, and when there were natural disasters, they believed the gods were angry.
The Olympians were huge sky beings who descended on Earth and had a headquarters at Mount Olympus. They interacted with humans, and the ancients believed that they were real beings.
For many years, historians believed that the Greek stories were complete myth. But then in 1870, the German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann discovered Troy. Similarly, we have the story of the oracle at Delphi and the god Apollo speaking through the oracle. Archaeologists have now found the exact spot where the oracle at Delphi sat. So now we know that some of the Greek stories are genuine. So is it possible that the stories of the Olympians are also true?
It's possible that they were actually extraterrestrial beings who came here to influence humankind.
Could the myths of ancient Greece be true? Was Mount Olympus home to gods living here on planet Earth? And if so, might those powerful deities have been extraterrestrials, as some ancient astronaut theorists believe? According to the accounts of the Greek poet Hesiod from the 8th century BC, the Olympians were the children of the Titans, another generation of gods thought to occupy nearby Mount Olympus. Fed up with the oppressive rule of the Titans, the Olympians waged a brutal rebellion against them, using Mount Olympus as their base.
The command was done from the mountains, and the battle took place on the plains between the mountains. And the battle went on and on. The Olympians prevailed, finally capturing the Titans.
Whenever we have references to Mount Olympus, it is described to be this magnificent palace, and the temple walls were always gleaming of gold or gleaming with silver, and a lot of little lights that they described as jewels, some blinking lights and all those things. Well, if you look at that from a modern perspective, what if Mount Olympus and Mount Olympus were basically the command posts where the Olympians and the Titans drew up their battle plans? And when I say command posts, I'm talking about a functioning military outpost in the mountains for an all-out war between extraterrestrials.
1971, Eastern India. It was here, at the Sanskrit College in Calcutta, that Eric von Daniken met with Professor Dilip Kanjilal to study the Vedic Sanskrit. an ancient language used in religious Hindu texts.
Professor Dilip Kanchilal has gone through old Indian texts and made modern versions of it. Now it comes out in the old books. The so-called gods, they used flying machines to travel from heaven to earth.
According to the ancient Vedic texts of India, the gods descended from the sky in flying vehicles. They refer to those vehicles as Vimanas. There are very detailed descriptions what these Vimanas looked like, how they traveled from place to place, what was necessary in order to pilot them. All those things are described in ancient Hindu texts that are thousands of years old.
And for Eric, he naturally felt that these Vimanas were real nuts and bolts aircraft. And of course, he's saying these are the vehicles of the ancient astronauts.
When Eric first went to India, he explored a whole bunch of different sites, and he quickly came to the realization that India is a treasure trove for the ancient astronaut theory, because all over India, we can find these magnificent temple towers that are referred to as stupas and also Vimanas. And so we have to ask ourselves, where did the form for a stupa come from?
Another great contribution of Eric is that he focused on India. Very few people had really studied the ancient Indian civilization, even though it is thousands of years old. And what he saw there were structures which were alleged to have been replicas of Vimanas.
So many Hindu temples in the Far East, they are representations in their architecture, what was going up in the sky. So the upper part of a Hindu temple often is seen as a flying object, as a Vimana.
And basically what we're being confronted with is the realization that these people built in stone objects which they seem to have seen in the sky.
When we look at the most ancient records we have coming out of the Vedic texts in India, there are clear descriptions of aerial battles taking place, Vimanas. So this really starts to raise the question about our own cycle of history. Is it completely linear, or is it possible that we're just starting to rediscover ancient technology that did exist thousands of years ago?
Ancient texts all over the world talk about flying vehicles, people who could fly through the air, flying horses. But it was Eric who really put it together, that the gods weren't just flying around like Superman. They had to get into some kind of nuts and bolts craft, just like we do, and go somewhere. And this was the chariots of the gods.
Enoch tells us about the guardians of the sky who came down. He says they are called fallen angels, and they wanted to have sex with humans. And the offspring of it were giants. So there were sexual contacts between extraterrestrials and the humans.
What does this mean? Well, it's very simple. Eric von Daniken's interpretation was, we are nothing else but hybrids of an extraterrestrial race that jump-started our civilization thousands and thousands of years ago.
Cape Canaveral, Florida, August 20th, 1975.
Ignition, we have liftoff.
The United States launches a Titan rocket carrying the Viking spacecraft. Viking is embarking on a 420 million mile journey to one of the most prominent sites in the night sky, Mars. If all goes well, in 11 months, the unmanned probe will touch down on the Martian surface and search for evidence of life. Mainstream scientists say Mars is most likely a dead planet because of its incredible temperature swings and high levels of solar radiation. So why is NASA spending $1 billion to explore it?
The night sky is an astounding thing. To the naked eye, the red planet could be seen with its special colors. After all, it's the biggest thing you see up there past the moon. So it's been a special object of fascination and reverence, because religious systems often were associated with the planets and the stars, the sky in general. Speculations about what's there, is intelligent life there, or the gods there, that's gone on for a long time.
Our dream for life on Mars probably goes back even to the ancient times when we were just doing naked eye observation. It's the planet that really stands out, that we now know is very close to Earth in terms of physical conditions. Even though Venus is much more like Earth in size and gravity, it's a hellhole in the solar system. But Mars is out there within our grasp.
Among the first to record this fiery red ball in the night sky were ancient Egyptian astronomers. In 1534 BC, they placed Mars on humanity's first chart of the known cosmos, the Cenimate star map. 2.5 centuries later, the Egyptians painted the planet Mars on the ceiling of the tomb of Seti I. But while the Egyptians honored Mars, many other ancient cultures feared it because they associated the red planet with death, destruction, and war. According to some anthropologists, this is because the planet glows red, like the color of blood, spilled on the battlefield.
The association of the red planet with the gods of war goes way back. In ancient Babylon, Mars was named after Nergal, the god of fire, death, and destruction, essentially a god of war. The Greeks named Mars after Ares, their god of war. The Romans, Mars, that is their god of war. Rome was a warrior culture. So this martial emphasis, all connected to the red planet, is accounting for the great armies that conquered the known world, a very successful story, and very much aligned with the planet Mars.